As any business person knows, if you can match service with customer need, there's opportunity for profit. For Amy Archer Gilligan, that opportunity came with the elderly.
Amy Archer Gilligan presented herself to the world as this very innocent Christian woman, projecting this veil of just a caretaker who wanted to take care of the sick and make a living at it.
Investigative journalist M. William Phelps believes Amy's customers were sold the perfect pitch.
You know, in today's economy, today's marketing, she would have been an expert marketer. What she should have had was a sign out front, really, that said, elderly care for life, as long as you don't die first.
In 1907, in Connecticut, Amy was ahead of her time, launching one of New England's first nursing homes.
She was a pioneer of elderly care at the turn of the century in New England. She kind of pioneered this whole idea of nursing elderly people, which later turns into convalescent homes, this kind of thing.
Seniors like Franklin Andrews signed up for a peaceful, caring home in which to spend their twilight years.
The marketing ploy was $1,000, and I give your relative, your elderly person, life care. And life care meant they stayed in the home, she took care of them, fed them, clothed them, gave them medicines.
There was no time limit. As long as the customers lived, Amy promised to care for them.
You know, it seemed too good to be true, and people lined up.
Clients and their families hoped for a long and restful life. But Amy's business plan called for something else. Turnover.
Let's set the scene. Picture a calm and peaceful New England night. Patients are readying themselves for bed. They've just finished dinner. You have Amy Archer Gilligan in the kitchen mixing up a batch of warm lemonade. And warm lemonade at the time was an elixir for if you had the flu or you had an ailment.
Amy kept her overheads down and vacancies up with arsenic.
She understood her market for death very thoroughly. Her whole marketing genius was get the person in there, let them stay there for maybe a month, knock them off, and she's got $1,000 in her pocket.
It sure beats changing bedpans for a living.
Amy's calculations went further. To conceal evidence of her poisoning, she counted on an old mortuary practice.
Well, basically, embalming fluids were preservatives, and they contained alcohols, formaldehyde, and they often contained a number of heavy metals like arsenic. Embalming, of course, being done prior to any post-mortem examination or prior to any specimens being taken for toxicology.
Amy had a near-perfect cover. Elderly clients were expected to die, sooner rather than later. And if there were any suspicions, forensic tests would be contaminated.
Amy was very good at marketing and business. She would sell a bed to the patient, kill them, and probably have someone lined up to take that bed before that patient even was taken to the morgue.
They dubbed it a murder factory because she was just a conveyor belt of bodies coming in and out of there.
But Amy's business plan had a fatal flaw. Medical records of the time may have misrecorded the cause of death, but they could not hide the number dying under Amy's care.
The returns of death certificates to the office of the Windsor Town Clerk show that there have been 60 deaths at the Archer home since the place opened in the fall of 1907.
Over time, a case mounted against Amy Archer Gilligan, but police needed evidence.
They had a lot of circumstantial evidence that they were beginning to incorporate some forensic evidence of doing some exhumations into it.
Franklin Andrews' body was exhumed and tested positive for arsenic. No surprise for an embalmed body of the day, but there was one anomaly.
Well, they found his stomach loaded with arsenic. Enough to kill several men. That was the quote.
Such levels could only have come from ingestion.
Right here, the Hartford Courant reports, it is the belief of the authorities that the wholesale murders have been committed at the Archer home.
Amy was convicted of murder and declared insane. She spent the rest of her life in an asylum. By the time she died, arsenic embalming fluid was banned. To the world, Blanch Taylor Moore was a caring Christian, a compassionate woman, led by spiritual commitment. So when her boyfriend Raymond Reed was hospitalized, no one was surprised at Blanche's constant care.
She was sort of beloved, I think, on the floor where he stayed, and the nurses testified that they thought she was a wonderful person and very caring, and that, Raymond was very lucky to have someone like that come in to see him.
Raymond was diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome.
Guillain-Barré syndrome is also known as French polio. It is an autoimmune disorder. The symptoms are muscle weakness, nerve tingling, progressive fatigue, and eventually may even lead to difficulty breathing.
Despite the best care, Raymond was destined to die. Again and again.
He actually died and was revived. His heart failed and he had kidney failure and died, and they revived him.
Several times, Raymond died a clinical death, losing heartbeat and respiration. But each time, expert medical staff pulled him back from the brink. Each time, Blanche was waiting with more comfort.
Apparently she took great care in preparing this food because hospital food was just not good enough for the man that she loved.
But whenever Raymond regained strength, there was another relapse.
Think of the worst flu you've ever had, multiply it by 100, and then lengthen it by 2 or 3 hours.
And another resuscitation. A terrifying roller coaster of life and death.
He's confused and frightened and, thinking he's going to die, and then he begins to get better, and then he starts to die again. And they say it's a horrible death. It's a really horrible way to die.
Raymond Reed died the final time in October 1986.
In my experience of writing about murders and covering murder trials, I think they all think that they're smarter than everybody else, and they're not going to be caught.
Within 2 years, Blanche had moved on into the arms of Reverend Dwight Moore.
He was a minister who courted her and pursued her, and she finally married him.
It seemed a match made in heaven. But during the honeymoon, the Reverend fell deathly ill. Although the symptoms mimicked Guillain-Barré syndrome, the speed of onset raised suspicions.
He happened to end up in a hospital where they had the smarts to test him for arsenic poisoning. And when they found huge doses of arsenic in his system, they immediately suspected that she had given it to him.
Reverend Moore's constitution foiled Blanche's plan. Against the odds, he survived.
Investigators later said that he had survived the largest dose of arsenic any human was ever known to have survived. So she was just unlucky. She poisoned someone whose system was stronger than she was.
Blanch would be charged with assault, and police probed further, exhuming the body of Raymond Reed. The chief medical examiner in North Carolina, John Butts, MD, exposed one of the state's most audacious murders.
This is graphing of the quantities of arsenic that were found in Mr. Reed's hair, and this tells us that that initial illness was a result of arsenic poisoning, but also tells us that he continued to receive arsenic while he was in the hospital.
Blanch was arrested and charged with murder. During her trial, jurors heard how Blanch killed her victim with kindness.
All evidence indicates that she was bringing poison to the hospital and disguised with or contained within some of the food that she fed him, and continued to poison him in the hospital until ultimately he died.
During her sentencing phase, the state actually argued that this murder, that his murder should be viewed as a serial murder because she killed him over and over again.
And there were more suspicions.
At one point, it looked like they were going to dig up everybody in about 3 counties and test them for arsenic. Anybody that had known Blanche Taylor Moore at any time in their lives was going to be tested.
We exhumed 5 individuals. They were individuals who it was believed that Mrs. Moore had some connection with. Obviously, they were deceased individuals, and there were symptoms or circumstances surrounding the death that raised the possibility of arsenic poisoning.
Traces of arsenic were found in the bodies of Blanche's first husband and her father. Although cleared of involvement with her father's death, some believe their troubled relationship set a young Blanche on a course of revenge.
We know that he was a womanizer. We know that he left the family. I think she replicated that sort of tortured relationship with the other men that she became involved with during her life.
It is not unusual that when they grow up, the problems that they had with their father, psychologically and emotionally, will spill over into their current relationships with men. They may love their husband, but as soon as things turn south or they are made angry by him, he may represent bad daddy, and he will be the target of their wrath. She may kill her father over and over and over again.
Convicted of one murder count and charged with another, Blanche Taylor Moore awaits execution on death row.
My grandfather made veiled references to an evil person who had been in the family. The family did not want to talk about Elizabeth. They just knew this was a bad person.
Dennis Bathory Kitts is a haunted man. The comfort of his home in Vermont can't shelter him from the horrors performed in his family name more than 400 years ago.
I struggle with what the Countess did all the time, in part because I've built a website about the Countess and I get a lot of very, very hostile email. And I begin to realize how much this has cascaded down through the centuries.
Countess Elizabeth Bathory was a Hungarian noblewoman at the turn of the 17th century.
She was cousin to the king of Hungary, of Transylvania, considered the most beautiful woman in the realm. Educated, brilliant, trilingual, a woman whose castles formed a line between west and east.
A diplomat, the Countess negotiated treaties between these two great empires. But by night, another creature emerged. The Countess of Blood.
There is evidence that hundreds of servants went to that castle and never came back.
It's believed Elizabeth was one of the world's worst serial killers, murdering perhaps 600 of her servants.
The numbers are astounding until you do the math. And if you think of the fact that she lived into her 50s and probably began this as a teenager, so she had 40 years to kill 600 of her servants.
Let's say, for the sake of argument, that she only killed 10% of what she's rumored to have killed.
In all her career, FBI profiler Candice DeLong has never encountered murder on such a scale.
60. And that would still make her one of the most prolific serial killers in the history of the world.
Elizabeth's personal death toll dwarfs any in modern crime. Even more disturbing is why she murdered.
There is a tale that this began because the blood fell on her skin when she was hitting a servant, and she thought that it made that skin younger.
Elizabeth believed blood would preserve her youth and beauty. In a macabre prologue to the fictitious Count Dracula from nearby Transylvania, the Countess drank her victim's blood. But unlike Dracula, Elizabeth was cruel fact.
Vampirism is a clinical term used by psychiatrists throughout the world. It is a behavior of consuming blood.
For criminal profiler Candice DeLong, this bizarre ritual is not unique to the environs of Transylvania.
I'm aware of cases in the United States, one very recent and one 30 years old, in which the individuals, both males, killed people for the sole purpose of consuming their blood.
Perhaps it was wanting some sort of youth from these young people. Perhaps it was just some sort of a mental defect that did not translate to the rest of her life.
Dennis is consumed by his ancestor. He gives blood as symbolic compensation and is driven to unearth the reasons for Elizabeth's evil.
How did she turn into this woman who would, by her own hands, do things that are hardly fit to tell? What can you say about this kind of behavior?
Modern science may have an answer to Dennis's painful question.
You see, before women began taking iron replacement therapy, they would lose iron each month with their menstrual period. And so many women were iron deficient. And when you're iron deficient, your hemoglobin level drops.
Forensic pathologist and county coroner Dr. Janis Amatuzio knows the human body's secrets. For 20 years, she's examined the dead, bringing their stories to life.
Blood is a real phenomenal source of iron. Perhaps she thought it would make her look more vibrant or younger because perhaps she was iron deficient. By drinking this blood, she got a rosy glow to her cheeks because she finally got her hemoglobin up to the level it was at.
Was the Blood Countess self-medicating for anemia? It's something Dennis had never considered. But he thinks there must be more behind the terrible crimes of his ancestor.
She bit her victims. She would bite their flesh.
What could turn a noblewoman into a vampire?
Those stories tell us who we are as people and what our dark side is.
Dennis is determined to find out. She lived 400 years ago, but the Countess's murderous motives still elude Dennis Bathory Kitts. His ancestor inhabits both his rational and creative mind. He's composing an opera about her.
I am the Countess Bathory, the Countess. I am the
This particular scene takes place when Elizabeth, the Blood Countess, has called a singer in the local church to her castle to sing for her. And the Countess keeps asking her, sing to me, sing to me, sing to me.
Through music, Dennis brings Elizabeth back to life, hoping to find meaning behind her malevolence. Over time, the Countess's behavior became more extreme as she yearned for youth and eternal beauty.
She would not only drain this blood to drink, but she would drain the blood and bathe in it and cover herself in it and luxuriate in a bath of warm blood.
For this, she needed even more victims.
There are 5 liters of blood in an adult human being. It takes only the loss of 1 liter, or 20% of the circulating blood volume, for the body to decompensate. In other words, for it to go into shock. Death would occur because simply there wouldn't be enough blood to go to the brain. And secondly, their heart would go into ventricular fibrillation or another abnormal heart rhythm. And then subsequently stop and respirations would stop.
We have to hear the story of Elizabeth because it reminds us that there are things we have to attend to, things that we have to prevent from ever happening again.
Dennis decides that to finish his work and to truly understand his murderous namesake, he must go to the scene of her crimes. Could delusion also explain the crimes of Countess Bathory?
The victims are supposed to be buried around here.
Her descendant, Dennis Bathory Kitts, has traveled to Slovakia, to Chuktica Castle, looking for clues.
It is an incredible spot. It is unbelievable, kind of frightening place. And there is the rumor that in the dark side of that wall, where the forest grows down quickly into the valley, that the servant girls were dumped.
The Countess's quest for blood to keep her young was as powerful as it was perverse. Was it a simple iron deficiency or grotesque delusion?
The
kind of woman who brutally murders for blood, to my way of thinking, is probably delusional or psychotic.
Dennis's ancestor lived in violent times when war and torture were the norm, when power was absolute.
Someone who is severely mentally ill and suffering from a delusion, it's probably going to be noticed or noticeable to those around them. Except we're going back 500 years to a woman who was very wealthy and was a countess, and oftentimes at those higher levels, mental illness and strange behavior is ignored.
Ignored and isolated. The Blood Countess lived beyond reproach by the townspeople below. Peasant servants could be killed without repercussion.
It was possible for her to get away with anything here because the only people around were her trusted servants, other royalty, and those who would never speak again, the girls.
Countess Bathory was locked in a deadly cycle of delusion, with nothing and no one to bring her back to reality.
And oftentimes, the more a person tries to get that thought out of their mind or that feeling out of their heart, the less they're able to do so. And oftentimes, the more the individual thinks about it, it kind of develops a life of its own. It feeds on itself.
Although many generations separate Dennis from his ancestor, he feels obliged to redress the crime.
There comes a time when the people who perpetrated the evil have to say, even if it's generations down the line, we're sorry for having done this to you.
And for a while, they do feel better after they commit the act. But the feeling doesn't last. The act never lives up to their fantasy. Why? Because a fantasy's in your mind and you can control every aspect of it. Reality is much different.
Dennis Bathory Kitts has one last appointment to keep. To confront the Blood Countess face to face.
I think this painting is absolutely frightening. The eyes, the pose, the stillness. And when you know what happened behind that stillness, it's even more terrifying.
Elizabeth never cheated age nor death. After murdering a noblewoman, her bloody history was exposed. She was walled into her castle tower. The only mercy, food pushed through a slot. She died alone and old. Her obsession unrealized.
Power, search for youth, madness. It's so impossible to know what it is that drove her to do this.
All I was thinking of was getting rid of him. That was the first thing that entered my mind. I said, this man's got to go.
Marie Hughes tells a disturbing story of the time she tries to poison her husband.
Now, he has been complaining about, oh, I feel sick for years and years and years. Well, my mind turned and I said, well, I'll bloody give you something to make you feel sick, you bugger.
I think that sometimes we can get angry and we may think about, gosh, that person really upset me, and boy, wouldn't it be nice if that person weren't here anymore. But the problem comes in when you start taking steps to make that fantasy into reality, and that's what Anne-Marie did.
Anne-Marie's fourth marriage is in crisis. She believes it to be an irretrievable breakdown. Divorce is in the cards. She's done it twice before. This time, she chooses a different path.
I met up with a clairvoyant. She said that he wouldn't live a long life. And she thought it would be a good idea that Mr. Hughes should go. So it was her idea. She's the one that talked me into the oleander.
The clairvoyant strenuously denies any involvement. But for whatever reason, Anne-Marie buys several oleander plants.
What do? I cut the leaves off, because they're only miniature plants, only tiny plants about 18 inches. So I just cut the leaves off and just put the roots in and boiled it.
Oleander is a very, very commonly available plant. It grows on the roadside in many countries. It's planted by municipalities because they produce beautiful flowers and long, slender leaves, and they're very hardy and they grow very well.
They're also deadly, containing a chemical which, if ingested, disrupts the heartbeat.
Cardioactive steroids, like what you find in oleander, interfere with the way the heart depolarizes and repolarizes, the way the heart beats and relaxes.
Well, I just poured a little bit in, like that.
Anne-Marie believes her marriage troubles will soon be over.
I felt bad about it, but I said, I've got to do this just to show this man that he can be brought to heal like everybody else. I had approached him to go to marriage guidance counselling, and he didn't hear me. He never wore his hearing aids, and all I ever got from him was, "I can't hear you." In other words, he turned the hearing aid off so he couldn't hear. And I just said, well, something's got to give.
I guess tuning a car would be one way to look at it. If you time it a little too early, you don't burn your fuel efficiently. If you time it a little too late, you don't burn your fuel efficiently. If you time it far too much on either side, the engine just won't start. Altering in either direction, which is exactly what a cardioactive steroid would do, could produce a malfunctioning heart.
The initial dose induces only a mild illness. Her husband's and her own reaction is not what Anne-Marie expects.
Oh God, I should not be doing this. And then I'd stop it for a while.
It will be the first of several doses. Anne-Marie is in torment.
It's not very pleasant trying to take someone's life. He was going through a lot of bad symptoms, and he said, "Oh God, if this is life, what is death?"
Fortunately for Anne-Marie and her husband, oleander's cardioactive steroids don't accumulate in the body.
So you'd have an acute poisoning, it would go away over the next day or two, and the symptoms you experienced would resolve, and then you'd have another episode of acute poisoning which would resolve until the dose got just right.
But Anne-Marie never gets the dose just right. In fact, when she isn't poisoning her husband, she's trying to save him with massage.
I did the cleansing of the stomach with the hands. That's, you go around across the top there and down there, and you follow the line of the bowel, and you get rid of all the stuff.
Anne-Marie finds herself torn between wife and killer.
Seeing how you're making someone suffer and then, you know, trying to do something about it. You've got, like, it gives you like that you've got a dual personality.
For 6 weeks, Anne-Marie lives a double life until instinct wins out.
I went into one of my neighbours who was living next door and told them what had happened, and they rang the police, and that's when I ended up in the position I am.
Anne-Marie confesses and is charged with endangering her husband's life. While she's in jail, she's diagnosed with severe depression and slides further downhill. At her trial a year later, the judge orders her release on medical grounds.
Oftentimes these offenders have high stress levels in their lives. They're unhappy, they've been unhappy all of their lives, they feel put upon, they feel they have too many burdens. And so killing for them is often a form of stress relief.
It's mind-boggling what I went through. And now I look back, I wonder how I had the courage and the conviction to do it. But then when you're pushed beyond your limit with years of abuse, what else can you do?